welcome to the next chapter. So today we have Tim Guest on the show. Now, I first connected with Tim through TikTok, and not long after, I had the privilege of being a guest on his own podcast. I've been following his work ever since and absolutely love the work that he does, helping men in recovery and supporting men's health on social media and on his own podcast. Tim's story of overcoming adversity and reinventing himself is incredibly inspiring. And as soon as I started this podcast, I knew I had to have him on. He's the perfect guest for the next chapter because this show is all about new beginnings, reinvention, and the power of taking ownership over your own life. So, Tim, for the listeners who don't know you, can you share a bit about yourself, please, and what life looked like before everything changed into 2020?
Sure, definitely. And thank you for having me on. We did a podcast some time ago now, which is still one of my most listened to episodes. So it's great. So yeah, I'm Tim Ghost. I'm Tim Guest, and I work with men in their 40s and 50s, specifically around helping them to redefine their purpose in life through fitness, through a series of kind of coaching methods that I use. It's a bit of my kind of backstory as well. So 2020 was a very difficult year for me. COVID, I'll cut a long story short, but I had to have some brain surgery, which meant I was out of action for a while. We had death in the family. We had a dog died. We were trying to homeschool. My recovery was very, very slow, and I kind of reverted to my old crutch, which was just drinking and non-stop drinking, really. Pre-2020, I was, reasonably successful business person, professional person. Alcohol had always been in my life, sometimes to excess, but kind of in control. But I would think nothing of having 4 cans of Bud on a Monday evening, which is kind of normal for me.
Well, that's so relatable, Tim. Yeah. You talked a bit about working hard and playing hard. I remember you saying before about you were into running a brewery and you were in recruitment as well. So what was your relationship with alcohol like, and what was that like at work at the time?
Yeah, so in my work hard, play hard time was before the children, when it was slightly easier to work hard and play hard. And yes, I worked in Manchester at the time in recruitment. It was very much, you've seen the film The Wolf of Wall Street. It was a little bit like that at times. We would go out whatever night of the week. It didn't really matter. There was one rule: get as drunk as you like, but you turn up to office the next day. And we had people would sometimes sleep in the office because the office was in town. We were blessed, or we're cursed. Anyway, we had a Wetherspoons in town that opened at 8 o'clock in the morning. And some of us, rather than going to work hungover, would get off the tram and go for a pint of Wetherspoons at 8 o'clock just to take the edge off the hangover.
Yeah, I remember you saying on the podcast when I come on with you, and this is so relatable. Obviously, being a tradesman myself, that work hard, play hard mentality is just it's just part and parcel of the job, right?
Yeah, that's it. You do a deal, you have a really good day. Hey, let's go and celebrate. We'll get the beers out in the office. And conversely, you're having a bad day and stuff's gone wrong. Oh, come on, guys, let's go down a pub. We'll go and have a few drinks and be all right. And you kind of find yourself drinking for any occasion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was there ever a rock bottom moment? For me, there wasn't really ever a standout rock bottom moment for me to change. I love the analogy, death by 1,000 cuts, but is there any standout moments for you that you can sort of put your finger on and say that was the time when I thought, right, enough is enough?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I just kept going. I mean, even when I look back at it, most of my problems in life were because of drink, going out, being a bit cocky, getting punched in the face and having a broken nose, slipping down some stairs and not putting my hand out and breaking a rib in my back and being, laid up in bed for 2 days, losing stuff. It was all kind of just what happened when you're drunk, and you didn't really think anything of it. And in some ways, you kind of got respect off your mates for being like that, because that's what everyone was like. I suppose when moving to Jersey, similar to yourself, moving to the Isle of Man, we moved here in 2022. That helped me because I wasn't drinking lots at the time. However, if I did drink, I would kind of revert back to my old ways. And there was one night in particular, it was a works night out. I hadn't intended to drink a lot. So I thought I'll just have a few, 2-3 bottles. It was a free bar. But then you can probably relate. Once you reach a certain threshold, that the sensible you completely forget. And then I found myself at the bar at midnight. I'd push my taxi back to 1 a.m. I was back to my old favourite Grey Goose on ice, double Grey Goose on ice. And then the next day, my wife was in a rowing race. I had to take my eldest daughter to a party, promised my younger daughter I'd go and play mini golf with her. And I was just hanging in bed like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. And then I took myself out and I did play crazy golf. I just took a bottle of Coke with me. I thought, you're a 48-year-old man. Your kids are looking at you like this. Come on. It wasn't all the time, but that was just enough for me. And then I did drink a little bit after that. But then one day just decided, oh, that's it. Can't be bothered anymore. Done.
I think you sort of outgrew it, Tim, do you think? Or obviously your move helped in getting you away from that drink culture. But do you think you outgrew it?
I wouldn't like to use the phrase outgrow it because I think that would make people who do drink think that I thought I was better than them because I've still got friends who do drink, but I just say I've grown apart. I've grown apart from it. It's no longer part of my identity. It's no longer part of who I am, and I don't miss it.
Okay. So I know you've had your issues with prescription drugs as well, Tim, in the past. What happened with that?
So that's another long story. Part of my brain condition that I had was causing insomnia. I've got some kind of changes to my bone structure, which caused me to have obstructive sleep apnea, which I didn't know about. So my routine was to drink beer or whatever else during the afternoon and evening. I wasn't drunk at any point. Well, I was sometimes, but most of the time not. Take diazepam, zopiclone, nitrazepam to just knock myself out and sleep. But with obstructive sleep apnea, you never sleep properly. I looked at my Fitbit, my heart rate was like going up into the 80s from when I was asleep. I was waking up every hour. And then I just found that I needed those tablets to kind of get me off to sleep. Otherwise, I'd just lie there, not able to sleep. And then I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have a few espressos, have some paracetamol and do it all again.
Wow. It really sounds like you've been on a hell of a roller coaster with drink and drugs, really.
Yeah, and I looking back at it, I do. There's a presentation that I do now, and I kind of it doesn't even feel like me. You're going through that time because I was kind of just drifting through the day, and all the left side of my face used to like twitch, and used to feel like I was about to have a stroke, and just literally just the tiredness. But fortunately, I managed to stopped taking the tablets, got some help for sleep apnea, which was which treated. And that was kind of me on the road to recovery after that.
Yeah. You mentioned not really being ready until you were ready. I think I saw this quote on your podcast description. What do you think finally made you ready, and what advice do you have for people who don't feel ready yet, who are sort of on the edge, on that fence?
I got that quote from an old colleague of mine called Michelle O'Brien, who again runs a podcast. She got me onto her podcast called The Upward Spiral, which is life after quitting drinking. And it was her kind of phrase. And I said, yeah, that's probably about the same as me, because I'd probably call myself sober curious and gone to a few events and not drunk, but it was never, I'm a not drinker. It's just, I'm not drinking today. And I guess I probably just wasn't mentally ready. And then I remember it was September the 7th, 2024. I'd had 2 large bottles of Madry from the garage, and I said, oh, that's it. They're my last 2 beers. And that was that.
I always say this. I say this to clients quite often. For me as well, all part of the journey. I know it's a word that gets used a hell of a lot in sobriety, but you start to become sober aware, and then you become sober aware, sober curious, and then you start doing your homework. You start dipping your toe in the water, giving yourself enough evidence to prove to yourself that this sort of life is possible. And what you mentioned there as well about that shift in identity, I think that's absolutely massive, because with all of the guys that I coach, that is one of the biggest hurdles for them. It's letting go of that old part of themselves and moving into that new identity. But I get so excited about that because one of my values is growth, and I just love and I get so excited about change and moving forward.
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with that. And in terms of the identity and advice to anyone else who's kind of thinking about it or on that step, my own coach who I was working with at the time was very much talking about identity, and one of the exercises that we did was create an avatar, like a persona for yourself in the future, your ideal self. Who do you want to be to your family, to your wife, to your children, to your colleagues? What do you want people to see you as? And at the time, I just signed up for a half Ironman as a relative newcomer to swimming, and I'd only just got back into running. So my avatar of a triathlete, drinking did not fit in with that persona that I defined. So it was somewhat of a no-brainer. Well, I'm this new person now, so drink doesn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, so powerful, so good. So social life for me and for so many others, it's a big part, right? So how did your social life and your parenting and that shift? How did you make these changes? Because this is especially for dads. It's such a hard part, right?
Yeah, so social life, I mean, I didn't have a huge social life anyway, because I was a husband, dad of two young children. They're 12 and 10 now. I before children, and even when the children were younger, I was done loads of partying, raves, and all sorts and stuff. Loved it. But socializing, I meet up with my good friends 2-3 times a year, and still do. And the first time that I met up with a group of them, we were in Amsterdam, and they knew that I was a non-drinker. And again, I found this very liberating. Rather than, oh, I'm not drinking at the moment, guys, it's like, no, I've given up, I don't drink anymore. They were more accepting of that than, oh, I'm not drinking this weekend. Like, oh, what are you doing? Well, a lads' weekend in Amsterdam. And the first order at the bar, 0% beer, no problem. We went to an outdoor festival in the afternoon, big music festival. I was buying rounds, they were buying rounds, mine was alcohol free. No one had any questions about it at all. The only time I got comments was the next day at the airport when they were all really, really rough and had spent a fortune. And I was just like feeling okay.
Yeah, that's one
Yeah.
of the big things that my clients say when they get past the first month of being sober, and they're in work on the Monday morning and everyone's hanging, and they just feel
Yeah.
so smug. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it is a brilliant feeling, but it's so hard to be. I always say that it's one of the hardest things for me has been trying not to be so self-righteous and
Yeah.
not to
No,
start preaching, right?
yeah, no, I definitely try not to do that. But you mentioned on parenting as well, because I mean, my kids always knew me as daddy who likes beer, and go and get me a beer from the fridge. And my youngest daughter Phoebe used to actually quite enjoy beer as well, and I was just always, they even got me a bottle opener once for my birthday with curry, barbecue, and beer, daddy's favourites. And then now I do feel more present with my family. Obviously, when you've got no hangovers on a Sunday, you're not, I'm going to the park, or I'm going swimming, or going to the beach, or playing football, or whatever else, and actually enjoying it rather than just getting myself through it. I also think what's good for children, because my oldest is about to become a teenager, is showing them that there is a choice. I don't. Why do you drink alcohol-free beer? Because I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. I have done for a long time. I want to look after my health. I want to be here for a long time to look after you guys, and that's just a choice I've made.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really good point to make. My son is 15. He was 15 last month, a couple of months back now, and he started experimenting with drink and what have you. And I've said to him, look, if you want to go out, go to a party. I'm not going to say don't drink. If it's something that you want to do with your mates and your mates are doing it, then go ahead and do it. Again, it's really hard for me to not be so preachy and pushy, but you've got to let them get on with it, right? If you could be that role model and you can show them that you can have fun without alcohol, then I think that's really powerful. And like you said, change is possible as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I was watching a YouTube video the other day. If you look up Carl Jung, Jung,
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
a theory
I know
that
Carl Young.
most adults, we're wearing a mask or multiple masks until we're in our 40s, just trying to fit in, going out with your mates and dabbling with drugs, drinking, whatever else. So then you've got the corporate mask at work. And it's only when you get slightly older and you don't really care what people think, that you can actually find out the true self. So it is harder for young people. But I think at the moment, certainly the people who I work with who are in their 20s, I'd say 50% don't drink. They're just not interested in it. I mean, partly because it's so bloody expensive now as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the cost is just ridiculous now, but I think the younger generation are more aware. There's a lot more stuff out now because of the internet as well. I think back when we were drinking and getting hammered in the 90s, we just didn't know what we were doing to ourselves, did we really?
No, no,
So,
it was
yeah,
literally
very,
go,
very, very different now.
go down the off license, send in the person at the oldest bottle of Thunderbird. That was our go to, and or some Tennant Super.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, Tennant Super. God, yeah, I remember I used to get a 4 pack of Tennant Super or Special Brew as well, wasn't it? It was like
Yeah,
8 or 9% lager. Oh my God. Used to get a 4 pack of that and have that. Um, try and have those 4 cans before we were going to go out, but then that normally just wrote me off those 4 cans. So another thing that I'd like to ask you about as well, Tim, is triggers and cravings and social pressure. Now, before we got on the call, you mentioned your Christmas works do recently as well. So yeah, have you got anything to say about, do you still get triggers? Do you still get cravings, urges, and how do you deal with social pressure now?
I do. I do. So Christmas do, not interested. Literally not bothered at all. Didn't have a trigger or a craving. There were people doing shots at my table. Wasn't interested. The only times that I've had sort of cravings recently have been, there was once I was out for a run and I was running along a beachfront. There was a couple of beach bars there and there was a guy there and he'd just got himself a ice cold pint of San Miguel in the proper San Miguel glass.
Be the
And I was just
condensation.
like, that's it. And I was like, oh, that looks, and at the time I was quite dehydrated because I'd been running. I was like, that looks good. And then the other time as well was on holiday recently. And again, I've been out running, so probably something to do with the dehydration. And I saw a picture of an ice cold beer and €1.50, 500 ml of beer all day. I'm thinking, oh, I could do an all dayer in there. That'd be really good. But then it just ran on,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they've been the only times really. So it's, but I do drink alcohol-free beers, and that does do the job for me. And I'll even go as far as in the summer, put a glass in the freezer so the glass is cold, pour my alcohol-free in, and that's a bit more of a treat.
Yeah, I know the alcohol-free stuff gets a bit of a bad press, especially for people who had a really, really bad drink problem, and they say it's triggering. But for me as well, I found it really, really helpful, especially
But
in
yeah,
social settings, because we're tribal creatures and we do want to fit in, like you were saying earlier. So if we're there with a beer or what looks like a beer, we feel part of the
definitely.
group.
Yeah,
If you're there with a Coke and you're with a bunch of guys and they've got beers, then it doesn't feel the same.
yeah. No, I totally agree, and it does. It just fills that void for me, really. And they're actually quite decent now as well.
Oh, they're really, really good. I was same as you. I went out for my Christmas do on Saturday, and I was on the Guinness Zeros, and
Mm,
yeah, there was so many of my workmates around, and they were all pissed, and they thought I was getting pissed with them. Yeah, it's quite funny, but yeah, I had a couple of them come up to me and say, "I thought you quit drinking," and I said, "This is a Guinness glass, but it's Guinness Zero," and they're
yeah.
like, "Oh my God, wow, really? Oh wow."
And you're having all the fun, but you haven't written off your Sunday.
Yeah, yeah, and I was dancing with them as well on the dance floor, it's like, yeah, brilliant. So, what would you say there are many myths out there, Tim, I know, but what would you say is the biggest myth about sobriety?
Probably that it's boring. I think that's definitely the biggest one. And my group of friends, we were seasoned drinkers, and some of them still are and do drink a lot. And I think it would always, if someone wasn't drinking, oh, they're boring. What's wrong with you? You must be boring. But I haven't found it boring at all. And then looking back, what is boring to me now is just sitting in a pub and drinking for 5, 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Talking with friends, nice. Connecting with friends, going on a walk with friends, doing something interesting with friends, yes. But going into a pub and just sitting drinking solidly for like 4 or 5 hours, because you probably forget half the stuff you talked about anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. After the first couple of pints, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
start slurring your words and you forget stuff. And I think, I think drink makes you tolerate. sitting in a pub for all those hours, right?
I listen to the same story over and over again, and probably telling the same story over and over
Yeah,
again.
same jokes, same stuff, and yeah, since I've been out with people who are obviously drinking like the Christmas do the other night and stuff, I have found that, it's normally I would have just stayed there really late and listened to the same jokes and the same old conversations on repeat. But when you're sober and you're driving as well, you can say, right, I've had enough. I've got to get back now. I've got to get a decent night's sleep because I got an early morning run
Yeah.
and a cold plunge to do, right?
So I can remember going on a stag do to Berlin a long time ago, before children, and one of the stag's friends who I'd not met before was a non-drinker, and I can always remember this, I kept forgetting his name and kept forgetting what he did, and then I went up to him. It's probably 3, 4 in the morning. I was like, "Oh, where's your name again?" And he's like, "Please, will you just stop asking me that question? You're really winding me up now." And then the next day, he's like, "Do you not remember how many times you asked me my name and what I do for a job?" I said, "No, I don't remember. Sorry, sorry." So who's the boring one?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good example. And I was saying to someone the other night, I was like, how is it? Because a lot of that conversation does come up all the time. That question, oh, isn't it boring? And I was like, well, what is boring about it? I've got more time. I do the things that I want to do. I'm not people pleasing. I'm choosing what I want to do. I'm taking the like control back and power. But again, until people give it a go, and this is another thing as well. People will say to me, people were saying to me on Saturday, they were like, well, I've done dry January. I've done Stop October, so I know what it's like. And I'll always say to these people, I say, 1 month, in my opinion, is not enough. I said, you need to give yourself at least a few months. And then
Yeah.
for real change, 3 months to 6 months, that's when
Yeah,
you're
I
really
think
going
you
to feel
do.
it.
And also, I noticed a real change when rather than saying I'm not drinking for an X amount of time, because that means that there's an end date to when I actually will start again. But I then found when I said that's it, I don't drink anymore. I found that even more liberating. So I went out to a friend of mine was in a white collar DJ competition. So they non-DJs, they put it through an 8-week course, and then there's a big party in a hotel function room. It was brilliant, really, really good. And the old me would have had deliberations. Shall I drive? No, I'll drink. Shall I get a cab booked? What time shall I get the cab booked for? How many shall I have? What am I doing tomorrow morning? Can I afford to have a vodka? But I didn't have any of that. Didn't have any of those questions because I just knew I was going to drive, have a brilliant time, and come home when I wanted.
Yeah, it's all that energy as well. I think it like
Mm,
when I think back now, the exhaustion of thinking, where's my next drink gonna be?
yeah,
Where can I get one? And you're planning everything. And really, I've used the analogy before about stepping out of the jar so you can read the label. When you get out of that bubble, that drinking bubble, you're like, oh my God, what was I?
I know.
My whole life revolved around drink. I remember I was meant to be going out for day trips with the children, and one of the first things I'd say to my wife was, "Where's the bar? Where can we get a drink?"
Yeah,
And it'd be like, yeah. And I think back now, and I think, Jesus Christ, yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
when you're in the middle of it, Tim, you don't think
yeah.
that, do you?
Well, I just done my first all-inclusive holiday as a non-drinker as well, and
Brilliant.
I put
Okay.
a post about that on LinkedIn actually, because again, that was really quite liberating. It was free beer. There was free prosecco at breakfast, ice cold prosecco in an ice bucket, and I didn't even get apart from when I saw that picture down on the beach. But again, there was no kind of how many shall I drink, what time shall I start drinking. I can't go and do this with the kids because I'm drinking. It was just quite a liberating experience.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. It's the value point as well.
Yeah,
When I was out the other night, there was obviously Christmas do. There was an open bar, so everyone was getting all these shots in, sambuca shots, etc. And yeah, and I remember a couple of the guys there were saying, "Oh, of course I'm going to have more," and I was like, "Well," and I was I was like, "Well, why have you got to have a quadruple vodka and coke?" And he said, "Well, it's free, isn't it?" So, and when you said about being on all inclusive holiday, that would have been a
yeah,
big trigger for me back in the day.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I met people there who was like, "Oh yeah, you've got to take advantage of this. You've got to get your money's worth." And I'm thinking, well, I am getting my money's worth for the holiday because I'm feeling good for the whole holiday and not hungover for half of it.
Exactly. It's that mindset shift. Exactly. So true. So moving on then, Tim, to toolkits and micro habits. So Mine now are definitely journaling, exercise, visualization. I know you do cold water therapy as well, and my morning routine is a big part of what I do now. Which habits have had the biggest impact on you, and how did you start incorporating them into your life?
So habits wise, I've got a few. So again, this is one of Ollie Ollerton's tips. My mentor, who I work with, he got me into every morning having 500 ml to large mug of hot water with half a squeezed lemon and a quarter of a teaspoon of Celtic sea salt. So not table salt, no way. Just the good, healthy Celtic sea salt, which has got all the minerals in for your body. So that's a great way to start the day. Plus, all you get all the vitamin C from the lemon. Another habit that I do is I've got into journaling. So sometimes it's only could be like, a couple of lines a day. Sometimes it's even more than that, but just starting the day, writing, setting my intentions for the day, writing what I'm grateful about, all those things as well, I found is really, really good. Another habit is I don't look at my phone for the first hour in the morning. So most people, me included, used to wake up, right, let's check social media, let's check the price of crypto. God forbid, let's check the news for the day. And immediately you're on a negative.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. And then also there's the cold water therapy. So the ice bath, which I know you're into now as well. So I try and go in 3-4 times a week. I'd like to go in more, but sometimes that old subconscious does get the better of me, because I go in about 10 to 6 in the morning and when it's hammering it down, but that's when I really enjoy it, because when I do it, I then feel so good saying I've taken control of my subconscious and gone in. Sometimes I am weak and don't go in though.
I think it's all about making it non-negotiable.
I know.
My wife, she hates it. Like my discipline, she absolutely hates it.
Are you in every
And
day then?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, every morning
every morning.
I just because I know if in James Clear states, doesn't he, in Atomic Habits, if you miss is it twice in a row,
I
then it
know.
becomes a new habit.
I know.
So the odd day, yeah. So when James, during the week, Monday to Friday, I will always come back from my run and get straight in the ice bath.
Yeah.
And then have a shower after. And I'm the same as you. I've spoke to quite a few other people who do ice plunges as well, and they always say it's strange. It's not so much when it's really cold, but it's when it's raining for some reason. Even though we're going to get wet anyway, I don't know what that is all about. But when it's raining, you just don't feel like getting in there. It's a strange one.
I know.
Pretty much every time that I'm going down the patio and I'm about to get in, I really don't want to get in. But when I walk back from the ice bath back at the patio, feel amazing. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I do it.
Yeah. I feel good for the rest of the day afterwards. It's, but going into the garden in your pants at 6 in the morning when it's dark, it's just quite an unnatural thing to do, to get in a barrel of cold water.
Yes, it is so true. You mentioned earlier, Tim, about training for your half Ironman, and I know that you do a lot of fitness. Obviously, I follow you on social media, but how has focusing on those physical challenges helped with your mental health and recovery? Would you say? Because I think they're really obviously very linked.
Yeah, it's given me something to focus on. I used to be fit and I have done ultra marathons. I've done marathons before. But then, probably about the time my second daughter was born, I got out of the habit of running. And I've always been a gym goer, so I've always been strong. Kind of muscles have been hidden under a layer of fat. I mean, I was never overweight, but I was kind of 90 kilos at one point and now 80. Having fitness, so I did the Jersey Marathon this year as well. I'm training for another half Ironman next year. It just gives me something to aim for. It helps. In the early days, it was a reason not to drink, because if I had a 10K run in the morning, well, I'm not going to drink the night before. So that has definitely helped. And in terms of kind of mindset as well, I don't know if you find this yourself, but going out for a run just clears the head. It's, you've got no phone with you, no one's calling for you, you've got nothing else to do other than just to run. And I
Yeah.
find it really does kind of clear the mind after work.
I find it therapeutic. Some people do walking meditations and they do running meditations, don't they? One of the great manifestation coaches that I follow, he does his meditations, he does running meditations. He'll run and meditate, and I've had some of my brightest ideas and
Yeah.
sort of aha moments when I've been
Yeah,
running.
definitely. I'm the
Um,
same.
like moving here to the Isle of Man, I remember we were we were on holiday and I was in the gym and I was on a treadmill I went outside, but I was on a treadmill, and I remember exactly where I was, and I had this idea about moving here, about what to do with the house and getting a mortgage, and everything just clicked. And I don't know what I can remember what I saw, where I was. It was one of those moments. And there's something like people say as well, don't they? When you're in the shower, you have these moments when you're detached from your phone, like you were saying before. So I think that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of goes back to my point about the in the morning routine, because I do wake up earlier than I need to, because you've got children, you know what it's like. But by 6:30, everyone's awake, everyone's fighting for the bathroom. Someone can't find their particular PE kit item for that day. Oldest daughter suddenly decides she needs a packed lunch. Something else is going on. Then it's like, right, what's on my work schedule? And then your brain's in constant fight mode, so you can't be creative. So getting up earlier and giving yourself space to think is definitely advantageous.
Yeah, yeah. It's self-care, isn't it, really? It's
Yeah,
looking after yourself,
yeah.
giving yourself that hour, that 2 hours. In the morning. People say to me, "Why'd you get up so early? What's the matter with you? You don't even start work till 8 o'clock." But I'm up at 6, so for that 2 hours, I'm getting ready for work.
Yeah.
But then you're ahead of everyone else as well, aren't you? So it's that
Mm.
mental shift as well. You've done all the work on yourself. Now you can get on with the rest of the day. So it's a great point to make. We mentioned earlier, Tim, about you moving to Jersey and making a fresh start. For me, moving to the Isle of Man, it was a massive, massive step. But I think it's been a really, really good thing for me. Like on in terms of personal development, it's really I had to step massively out of my comfort zone. So, for you, what did starting over in a new place teach you about yourself and about change, would you say?
Yeah, so similar to you actually, and it kind of helped kickstart my sober journey. It helped kickstart me getting fit again. I mean, island life, there's a lot of fit people here because there's lots of opportunity, whether it's land or sea. Everyone seemed to be out swimming, biking, boating, climbing, doing something or other. In terms of what it taught me, I mean, it was a big move, um, moving your entire life into one lorry, moving to another island. And again, it kind of just sort of taught me that, change, it's not as hard as people think. And when I look at some people who have stayed in the same place all their life, are they happy? Probably yes. But then I'm happy having lots of different life experiences and gaining new friends everywhere I move to. I lived in Southampton, I've lived in Manchester, lived in Bedfordshire, now I live in Jersey, and I've still got friends from each part of my life and new experiences to go with it.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a really good point. We only got one life. I remember
Yeah.
when I went traveling. I went traveling when I was 19, and it was such a big change. And I remember landing in Australia. I was on my own, and I was like thinking I was in a backpackers in a dormitory in Melbourne on my own, and I was just like, "What the hell have I done? What am I doing? I'm on the other side of the world. I don't know anyone." And yeah, it was a horrible night, but I'll never forget that night. And then the next day, I started meeting people. I started pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I started growing, and wow, I mean, what an experience that was, and it completely
Yeah.
shaped who I am today, and it gave me the courage to make a big change, like moving here to the Isle of Man. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean,
powerful stuff.
we're programmed to fear change, aren't we? It's the old part of the brain that will keep you doing the same thing because in caveman times it's kept you safe. You walk the same route to work at the same day. You go and hunt in the same place. It's kept you safe. Doing something different feels odd, and it's meant to feel odd. But once you push through it, that's when you then grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like I said earlier, growth is one of my 6 core values, and I think that's a really, really powerful thing to do. It's something that I do with all my clients: go through their values and find out what's really important to you. And for me, growth is, and I'm a student of life now. I'll continue to grow. I'm never going to be the finished article. And I think when you can own that and say, "Yeah, I'm always learning," then it's really, really powerful. So moving on again then, Tim, helping men and breaking down that ego, as we both know, working with men in recovery. Why do you think so many men in midlife are struggling right now?
A number of reasons. I mean, if you look at in the United States, it's normal for men to have a coach, well, for people to have a coach or a mentor. But 3/4 of them are in therapy for something or other. It's just seen as a normal thing to do. But for British people, I think a lot of people think, particularly for men, feel it's a sign of weakness to reach out and say, I need some help ultimately. But they shouldn't do. Top athletes have coaches, top executive have coaches as well. So as well as that, I think another reason why they're struggling is the social pressures. When our dads were younger, they were the breadwinners. They went out and they earned the money, and then they would come home and food would be cooked most of the time whilst women did work. My dad, for example, when he goes away, my mum will still pack his bag, fold his shirts, does his cooking for him, does his ironing for him. And now we are much more hands-on. We are hands-on with our children. We are hands-on cooks. We are working hard, and most of the time it's very normal for both parents to work full time. So they share the load. The housework doesn't get done on its own. My wife will probably say that I think it does. But I think it's just all the social pressures and all of that adding up. That a lot of people feel, as me included, that, oh, I need a beer. I need a beer. I'm so busy at work. I've got all this stuff to do. Just got the kids to bed. Right. Let me have a can. Let me have two. And I think it's that kind of vicious cycle that people are in.
Yeah, it's that winding down, isn't it? It's that quick release. And that's what I always used to find. The biggest trigger for me was stress, definitely. It wasn't so much the social thing. I liked to connect with my friends, have good conversations like you were saying before. But I did find that getting home from work, being wound up, I was on autopilot. I used to go into the kitchen, top can of the fridge, bang, glug, glug, glug. That was it. But yeah, one of the biggest things for me as a coach, Tim, is definitely trying to break down that ego and get men to open up and ask for help. So how do you go about that? Helping men yourself? How we spoke a bit about the ego, but how, I know it's such a hard question to ask, but how do you think we can break down the ego and help men be more vulnerable and talk about their
Yeah.
problems?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when I work with people, I take them through a process, and I'll only, probably like you, I'll only work with people I know will get results. And you can tell from kind of your first discovery call with someone if they are interested, if they're going to do the things that you say, if they're going to be accountable, or if they're just thinking about doing it. So once I am working with people, I tend to find that I get good results because I've got a framework to follow. People have accountability, but it's kind of, how do we get through to those 99% of other men who are kind of stuck? Like I said to you about my colleague at work who said that he was envious of the fact that I didn't drink anymore because he's got no willpower. It's how do we get through to them? And I think it's just things like this that we're doing. Podcasts, content on social media. So people who are maybe on that 6-month, 1 year, 2 year journey to actually changing can just find and consume material to start them thinking about themselves and then actually wanting to make a change.
Yeah, yeah. I think being sober curious, like you say, and it's being radical. I say radical honesty, really, because I think so many of us, one of the biggest things that hold us back is lying to ourselves. I mean, people say about lying to each other all the time, but it's the stories we tell ourselves. It's such a massive thing. And yeah, but I completely agree with what you're saying. When you do get on a discovery call with someone, you can tell normally straight away whether they
Yeah.
are going to change, but they need to be honest with themselves first.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And if they're not ready, I point them in the direction of some of my material and that there's no hard feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so if if there's someone listening to this now, Tim, that's feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or lost, what would be the first step that you would encourage them to take? Say they were in the situation that you were in 2020 when you were really, really feeling it.
I think a good starting point is to take some time out, sit down somewhere when you've got an hour free and write down, the key parts of your life. For most men, it would be work, finances, fitness and family, possibly nutrition thrown in there as well and diet, but that kind of goes in with health and fitness. And give yourself a score out of 5 or out of 10 in those areas and just be honest with yourself. And then have a think about the person who you really want to be in a year's time, and not just the person you want to be for you, but for those around you. So what sort of husband do you want to be? How do you want your children to look up to you? And then think, with those scores I've given myself there, what do they need to be so I can be respected by my family and be a good role model? And then once you've done that, so you might score yourself like a 2 for fitness and a 3 for health, and work is really good at the moment. So you give yourself a 7 for that, but relationship with kids might be a bit lower, and then start to work back and say, well, I need to improve these areas here. So how do I do that? And that's a good starting point. And then also the other thing to do is to think about why. And this is what I say to everyone, that your why is so important. I want to get sober. Well, why? I want to run a marathon. Why? I want to get fit. Why? And if people can't articulate why they want to do something, they probably won't achieve it.
And they're probably doing it for other people as well. Like
Yeah,
you were saying
exactly.
before,
I think
you've got to want to do it for yourself.
that's right. And it's one of the top 10 reasons why goals fail, because they're not your goal. My wife's told me I have to give up smoking. It needs to be your goal. You need to own it. Otherwise you won't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's that radical honesty that I said about before. You mentioned nutrition there, Tim. Now that's something that I've only recently, since going sober and getting more and more curious and trying different things out. I've never really been into diets. I've never really watched what I've ate because I've always exercised quite a lot. I haven't had to worry about that sort of thing. How important is nutrition and how important is food, would you say?
It is very important. I mean, I'm reasonably good, and when I'm training hard for something, I'm even better. At the moment, I am succumbing to the cakes and chocolates and everything else that gets brought into work at this time of year. I have found that since giving up booze, I'm more succumbing to a dessert or a bar of chocolate or something. And I do like the odd takeaway every now and again. But healthy home cooked food is very, very important, for everybody, particularly if you're going to be doing some sort of exercise. So I do try and be fairly disciplined with food, and particularly if I'm running up to an event.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've found it so just I've recently been on the keto diet, so I cut out
Yeah,
sugars and carbs for a month, and I found for the first 2 weeks I struggled, but then all of a sudden I had more focus. I
yeah,
didn't feel so tired, and I've never cut sugar ever out of my diet, and I found it made a real big difference. So it's not something that I'm going to be doing long term, but I just found it really interesting.
yeah. I also get benefit out of intermittent fasting as well. So probably 2 days a week, I'll do a 16-8. So eating for 8 and then fasting for 16. There's loads of free apps you can get on your phone to do that, and I find that that's really good. And again, the first few times you do kind of struggle a bit, think, "Oh, I'm hungry, I need some breakfast." But once you push through, and I do find when I'm doing that, I'm sleeping better as well.
Yeah, yeah, and sleep's such an important part. One of the things we were talking before about the book Alcohol Explained by William Porter. Is a great book, and a big part of that is REM sleep and going sober. And now my sleep is
Oh yeah,
just unrecognizable from what it was when I was drinking.
yeah. I mean, when I used to look at my, because now my resting heart rate when I'm asleep is a nice sort of flat line in the low 40s. My heart rate's low 40s. But when I used to drink, I'd fall asleep and then it would kind of go up. And yes, it was something to do with my sleep apnea as well. But during the day, my resting heart rate was about 50, but at night it was like 75. So
Yeah, yeah,
not very
yeah.
healthy.
It's insane. My heart rate variability was always just, yeah, it was mad.
Single
It was like
figures.
I remember saying on your podcast, it was like I was ill all the time. And I was like, right, I've got to cut this out. But yeah, one of the many reasons why I quit drinking. So for you then, Tim, what does the next chapter look like for you personally, professionally, and moving on with your growth?
So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing and just continue on this journey. I'm a bit like you, kind of into learning as well. So I am doing because I'm coaching people, but I'm going to do a professional coaching qualification, or I am halfway through with Noble Manhattan, so I can get an accreditation. Continuing with the fitness, I've got another half Ironman next year. And when I'm 50 in 2027, I will do a full Ironman as well. And really just continuing on this journey of self-discovery and supporting others along the way. So we said before we started pressing record, one of the fulfilling parts of doing this is people who contact you and say, I've listened to your podcast and I've quit drinking, it's changed my life. Or people who I've worked with who've said, I've become fit again. I've lost weight. My family are looking at me in a different way. It really does inspire me to carry on.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big, big part, especially when times are tough and you're struggling yourself, because we're only human as well. You know, we're it's still one day at a time for us. So when you
Definitely,
do get
yeah.
that recognition and people, it's like, right, that is the reason I put content out every day. That's the reason I record that podcast. Yeah, and yeah, it makes it worthwhile. And sometimes you need that little nudge, don't you?
Yeah, and I think it's also what you just said is important to share with the people that we work with. You know, that we are not this on this pedestal, all high and mighty. Everything is positive. Everything is fine. I am a very positive person, but I do have bad days sometimes. I do have days when I eat badly and eat loads of sugar and don't go on my run. And we're only human at the end of the day, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, 100%, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to put yourself up on a
Yeah.
pedestal, because yeah, we all have off days, right? So is there one book, Tim? Is there a tool, or is there, but we've mentioned plenty of them during this podcast, or one practice that you recommend for anyone who is looking to start their own next chapter?
So probably book wise is Battle Ready by Ollie Ollerton.
Okay.
So is that the one? Yes, Battle Ready. That's the one. He's written a few. So Ollie is ex-Special Forces guy who was on the TV. His book is readily available on Amazon. He's the coach I work with on a weekly basis. But that book changed my life, talking about basically how to change your life, really, and all these habits and things. Another book, as we said, is this one here, Alcohol Explained. This is very, very good. And again, I've lent this to someone who I know, and that's made him quit drinking as well. He was thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying to you before we hit record that that was sort of the final part of the jigsaw for me. I read that book, and I learned about the science, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what have I been doing to my body all this time? We only get one vessel, and this, yes, yeah. When you read that, it's a real eye opener. It really is. So, where can listeners connect with you, Tim, and learn more about the work that you do, and obviously your podcast that I was on as well?
So everything is on my website now, which is goal.ninja. So
Okay, I'll link
GOAL
it.
dot
I'll
ninja.
put the
Yep.
link in the description anyway.
And then if you go to my blog section, my podcast, and I'll link to the blogs, or you can go to Own It, the Comeback podcast.
Okay, Tim. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story and all the good work that you do. And I know that this conversation will have definitely helped so many other men who need to hear it. And the world that does need more people like you, Tim.
Yeah, and you as well.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.